All right, we're going to get going. We're going to call the meeting to order. We will acknowledge the placement of the Open Meetings Act poster right behind me there. And Dana, if you take roll call.
Jansen?
Yes.
Lange?
He's here somewhere.
Yes.
Roger? Yeah.
Marsh?
Yep.
Toppy?
Yes.
Cots?
Yes.
Van Heek? Yes. All present?
Then we need a motion to legally convene.
I'll move. I'll second.
Cots?
Yes.
Van Heek? Yes. Jansen?
Yes.
Lange?
Yep.
Marsh?
Yes.
Toppy?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
And then tonight, the only agenda item is 2.1, review of potential district construction projects and priorities. I'm going to kick it off just by saying thanks, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Perfect. You got to let us know if you can't. There's a lot of fans going. But thanks for coming to support this kind of really exciting and important time for the Crawford Community Schools. 4 things I'd like you to think about tonight and remember tonight as we're talking through this. That if you're at, I think a couple weeks ago, Chris kind of hit on them, but really 4 big things. First one, we the board haven't made any decisions yet, so we need your feedback tonight. No decisions have been made on really anything yet. Number 2, all feedback, good and bad, positive, negative, we need to hear. And meetings like this tonight and in the future, all that feedback is going to help us, and it's going to be really critical in helping us as a board, make those decisions that we're going to have to make in the future. And then number 3, we need all opinions. We have a big district. We need all opinions, all feedback, all voices, all ideas from the start. So don't wait till the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th meeting, to give your opinion. Waiting is only going to make this take longer and kind of draw this thing out. So the sooner we can get to common ground and get a consensus, it's going to be the better thing. And it's going to put us as a board and the architects and everyone else in a better decision and as a community to make that final decision. And then number 4, we hit on this the last couple of times, but the decision that the board and the community, the decision that you make ultimately should have really one thing in mind as we're thinking through everything tonight. And that is the future education and experiences of our kids and grandkids at Crawford. That's really got to be at the front of everything that we're talking about tonight. Really the goal of us is to put them in a position, leaving Crawford Community Schools in a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, to go excel at whatever career path, that they choose upon graduation. So tonight, please keep our kids' future education top of mind, while also, making decisions in a financially responsible way. That's a really, really important thing. Let's do the right thing, but do it in a financially responsible way. So again, thanks for coming. Great turnout tonight. I don't know if we've got 70, 80 people. Hopefully we get more, but thanks for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Look to say a couple other things.
All right, so I just want to thank you for coming. The last time we met in May, we left that meeting voting on some options. And like everybody said, nothing's been decided, nothing's off the table, but this is the direction that came from that meeting. So the breakdown from that, of the people that voted, we had 41 vote for building new elementary at the high school site. And that was our first choice. Then we had 10 choose their first choice to build a new elementary here on this site, so out here to the north. And then 3 who had their first choice to complete a renovation of this current building. So that's kind of leading the direction right now. Like I said, that doesn't mean that anything's off the table, so keep that in mind. The architects will mention it a little bit later as well. You'll notice that on the drawings I have in front of you, they're located in one area or another. Those can always be moved to any spot within that. It's mainly just to show you the square footage and items like that. So that's going to probably change quite a bit as we go. Like we mentioned, tonight's going to be about looking at the priorities on the items in the plans, and you see some of those listed there. Your group and tables in so that everybody has that opportunity to speak, like Larry was talking about. We want to hear all that feedback. Other than that, I will introduce, we have with architecture incorporated, Steve Johnson and Terry Miller. And then the municipal advisor, Toby Buchanan from First National Capital Markets. So they're going to take over here. If there's anything else we think of, we'll jump in and let you know. Also, a reminder, if you want a tour of this building at the high school, let us know. We can do that afterwards, or we can do it any other day. We just need to set that up. Also, back in the corner there, if you get thirsty, there's water and the 2 coolers back there, so help yourselves.
Good evening. So we're going to try to get to the fun stuff where we get to listen to you guys a little bit more quicker. This is sort of what we're looking to do tonight. It's pretty similar to the last time that we were here. We're going to kind of touch on everything a little bit, and then we'll hit the, as Chris said, the design priorities. So the way that we got here was we did, Architecture Incorporated came out as part of the initial study to come around and look at all the facilities. And we looked at both. We looked at the elementary and the high school, and we went through and looked at some of our key priorities, which is security, ADA accessibility, fire ratings, door hardware, things like that. And the longevity of your systems, your mechanical and electrical systems. We had our MEP people, our engineers, come out and take a look as well, and they did a full assessment. And we sent that assessment on to the school board so that they have that as a record and as background information for them. Then the next step that we kind of took was to program the facilities. And when we say program, we just basically label that as the spaces that you as a district need. You need K through 6. You need, beyond that, you need 7 through 12. We need to have those classrooms. You need to have those specialty classrooms too, the art, the music, the science, all of those items. And that kind of just gives us information. How many special ed rooms do you need? And where, do you have counselors? How many counselors do you have? Speech, and that kind of thing, so that we have a very good list of those, and we can assign. When we have that understanding, then we can assign a square footage to those. And that helps us come up with sort of the drawings that you're seeing in front of you. We met with the smaller committee a few times, and we reviewed different options. And the previous meeting, we came with 3 different options to show to everybody that was here and discuss. And then, as Chris gave you the vote breakdown, that's where is what drove where we are now. I always like to reiterate this. There's nothing that's set in stone. I was talking to some people today about a different project and this project, and it's super easy for us to move these walls. They look like super straight lines, but it's really much faster. I came from hand drafting. This is a lot faster to move. So, and then, like we said, I just want to reiterate, nothing is set in stone, but this is where we are right now. If I can get this one. One of the biggest goal and expectation for this meeting, and it started way back when we even interviewed for this project, is one of the things that Architecture Incorporated stands on is that we listen. And so we need your feedback, just like we did from the last meeting to this meeting. And anything that you give us with the how, the why, anything, we sort of put that into a Rolodex and keep that information so that it drives our decisions as we move forward. So anything that you see tonight, the proposed floor plan, the 3D images, any of the priorities that we're going to discuss, if you have feedback about what makes them plus delta, we want that information. So we took your information from the last time. The vote that was cast was and is that we would build out at the high school site. I don't know if that's what it will end up being, but for now, this is what we have, and that's what's in front of you. It doesn't look quite the same because I put the design priorities on the side, but that paper is the same. So if you would like to follow along, and we'll start up at the north. North is up at the top. In the purple, you see that we're going to expand the weight room. We're going to add a couple locker rooms. We're going to have a wrestling room. We have a competitive gym, which is in the big purple box next to your existing gym. Then we have a shop, which is in orange, and 2 blue rooms adjacent to that. And then basically to the south down is your elementary. If you want to take a look at that a little bit, kind of familiarize yourself. I know a lot of people were right before we started, but really what we did here was take the plan that we discussed last time and put a little bit more detail in it. So that we're showing you doors, we're showing you where the restrooms are, because I think last time, one of the things that was questioned was where are the restrooms for the little kids down in the preschool area? Well, in Architecture Incorporated, we like to put a restroom in every preschool and kindergarten room because little kids seem to get lost in the malls. They can't seem to find their way back, or they get distracted by something, so if we have them have a restroom in that classroom, it's really beneficial. And that's one of the things that's a little bit unique for this plan is that you have your 4 preschool / what we've been told could be potentially daycare as well. This is just the first stab at what this could potentially look like out here. And we wanted to take a look at what this could look like only because we want to show you that we can marry your school, which wasn't built that long ago, with a new school and make it not look like an addition. We can highlight where your secure entries are. We can make it, which is necessary for wayfinding. It helps people understand, hey, this is how I get into the building. It helps kids understand, hey, this is where I need to go. And it helps everybody in the general public too, when you come to an event at the school, that this is how we get in. And it is also sort of the face of your school. It's the pride of your school. And I have a few of them. This is just a little bit closer. Off to your left would be the main entry, which is where the high school would come in, where you would come into the high school and the district office. This would be your secure entry, so that if you're a visitor coming to school, you have a kid in the school, or during school hours, you have to go into the office to be let into the school. Off to the right is the elementary entrance, so during the day, operationally, you could decide whether that was also going to be secure entry or not as well. However, we like to keep the high school kids, older kids, separate from the elementary kids because there's less confusion and less injury. This is just something that your playground could look like. We can incorporate, we had a lot of paved surface for you. A lot of the schools these days, we don't use grass because it just gets run over and dies, especially when it's 100 degrees and everybody's trying to play outside and there's no water. But we have a lot of paved surface. There would be fall protection mulch around all of your different playground equipment. We could do some different things out there to make paint. A lot of times we do painting on the ground that's hopscotch, it stays. It also helps if we paint out here. As you can see, there's a piece of pavement out front of the door. That's where a lot of the kids line up. We paint the paw prints or the logo on the ground so that you can line up your classes right in front of these doors. Or you can have some grass and you can have some soccer fields or just general play area. This is a view from the backside, which would look at your shop and your CTE/ag area. This is, I know that you guys have a lot of pavement and a lot of schools do this where there's still build room outside of the school, outside of the walls of the classroom, so that there's a big project that can sit out on the pavement and we can work on it outside and we don't have to have it inside. I'm gonna get out of this and show you to so this is what your entry would look like if you were to walk up to it. This is sort of in an eye level view, so that you can see how that would look as you're coming up to your school. We did a little bit different so that it would, a little bit different material so that it would highlight where your entries are, as I said. And like Chris alluded to earlier, this plan isn't set in stone, but it does show you exactly where your square footage is. I know that there was a request to see a floor plan that everything went straight east. Regardless if we go straight east or not, I think that's still going to be the same square footage, but we can stretch it out that way. But that's definitely something we can look at later too. We just need feedback to know what you want to do. So this is kind of an aerial overview. The white roofs are actually what your school already has. I did ours as black so that you could kind of see a difference. So these are all existing classrooms and existing gym space. And as you spin around, carry your same sort of finished language around to the back side with your brick detail. Put you on the ground. I think that the school, the high school, has some really great finishes to begin with, and we can just build on those as we continue this process. So tonight, the biggest thing that we wanted to get for information from everybody is what are your design priorities? And we're gonna go through, we listed on the phone, it was Steve and I, and Chris and Tobin, we went through and discussed what we thought those were. And there's a list of 9 of them. And we're gonna go through and we're gonna discuss them and explain them to you, so that then you have a good understanding. And then we're gonna have you talk amongst the table, because there might be something we missed. There might be one that should be on that list. And then, at the end, we're gonna have you report out your top 2 and your bottom 2. But also, just like at the last meeting, we're gonna have you vote, so that you as an individual get a voice as well. Chris had a good point. There was a question about what this information is gonna do for us. This information is gonna be used as a design team to help drive this design forward. We listen to everybody talk and we take all of their input and we use that to make sure that we're keeping in mind the community and the administrative's priorities, so that when we start shifting things and we start moving things to accommodate any changes or to adjust the plan, say we decide that it's best to go all the way east, that we're prioritizing what is we've been told to prioritize, so that we have a good understanding and we do what you're asking us to do. As you can see on this one, the top portion of this is kind of ghosted out. And I wanted you to be able to still see the plan and see what we're talking about, but my question is this elementary school K through 6? Is this a big priority? What do we need to do? Is it needed? The second priority would be listed as the 4 classrooms that are on the south end. Is that pre-K/daycare option a big priority? In your community, as a household, as a group, is that a big priority? And where would it rank? A competition gym. This could be a competition gym, it could also be an auxiliary gym. We do think that you need 2 gyms as a school district to function, because you have so many different practices and so many different kids that are doing different things. We still have to have 2 gyms, but you want it to be a competition gym, which would mean that your existing gym would become your auxiliary gym, your support gym. 2 locker rooms. You currently have 2. We would recommend that you have 4 total, just because then when you have traveling teams, or also during the day-to-day, that you can have your junior high in one area and your high schoolers in another, so they're not co-mixing. Expanding your fitness and weight room. You have a weight room currently. Do you need to expand that? Is that a priority to you? The Ag and CTE area. We show a new shop and 2 new classrooms. Those classrooms are the same size as any other classroom throughout the facility. Do those need to be a priority as well? Where does that fall on your list? We also listed a performance stage. So currently you have this stage. There isn't a stage out at the high school currently. And where does that fall on the list? In your opinion, and for the community? A wrestling room. Currently, I believe they have wrestling in the commons area out at the high school. So if we were to change this and add that to the plan, is this a priority for you? And then the last item, which was number 9, is the track. And I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that it would be in 8 lanes. We would build up the surface and do all of the drainage and everything to make that function. Where does that fall on your list of priorities? I'm gonna turn it over to Tobin and he's gonna go through some information.
Yeah, this is just to remind those that were here last time, if you weren't here last time, to give you kind of that fundamental model. Fundamental knowledge of the district finances and the budget, and then potentially what the tax impact would look like on a project of this size. So currently the valuation of the district is just under $600 million, just showing that for every penny that the board sets as a tax, it brings in just under $60,000 in revenue. So this year's general fund was about 0.677 cents. The general fund is the operating budget, so the board determines each year, this is how much we need to pay bills, they payroll, operate the district, they set that levy and it generates those dollars throughout the year on the tax base. And then currently the board has about just under 8 cents going into the special building fund. And that fund also can accumulate over time. It doesn't generate usually enough dollars to do a large project, but it does help put money away into a reserve to address building and facility needs over time. So the total right now is just about 75 cents. And there's some fund balances in the building fund, depreciation fund. The reason I show you those are dollars that are sitting there that kind of in anticipation of the board knows there's some needs. These funds can remain there. They can help with the project. They can be there over time to address other facility needs as they present themselves. This is just a bond market update that we talked about last time. I think I'm so comfortable saying that bond rates are right at the same level. So most school districts, when they do a bond, they'll issue 20-year bonds. That gives a 20-year payback period. And so right now, the rates on a 20-year bond are around 1.75%. A little over a year ago, they were probably at 2.6. And a little over 2 years ago, they were probably in that 3.7% range. So the reason I point that out, and whenever we look at something like this, there's always a cost to borrowing. I guess the good news with the rates now is they're helping offset some of those other costs, and the way I look at it, it at least helps dollars go toward the building versus just to pay interest on the bond. The way it works out for your district, with your valuation and the annual payments on the bond, the board right now, if all things would stay the same, have to tax about 1 cent for every $1 million they would issue in a bond issue. So it makes kind of the math much easier for us to kind of figure as we look at different information. So last time, if you were here, the 3 projects that were presented, this was actually the lowest cost option as well. And the projected cost right now from the design team is $22,750,000. So I told you it's a penny per million. So what that means is to generate the dollars, to make the yearly bond payment, the bond levy would have to be 22.75 cents. So these tables just try to help show you some benchmark numbers for homeowners and ag landowners. The easiest one is if I live in a $100,000 house and the bond levy is 22.75 cents, that means I'm going to pay $227.50 per year toward the bond payment in a $100,000 home. And then we just use averages across your counties the best we can to show some of the ag land average assessed values. So understanding these might not be right on the number for you, but that's why I show you this formula down here below, that if you know your valuation, whether you live in a home or have ag land or both, you look at your current valuation times the 0.002275. I know you won't memorize that, but if there's information that goes out, we'll make sure people can understand how to calculate that. That's how you find your individual annual tax impact for the bond payment. I don't know if there's one more slide or if So the other thing I would say on that, that's just the bond payment alone. A lot of times there's more to the financial story. So if there is going to be something that moves forward and one site creates some annual efficiencies for operations, we may talk about that and how would that impact things. we're always very careful not to oversell that type of thing. So we want to work through that, look at those things, share that information with the public, but make sure that we're not making promises and overselling that. The same with the building fund. If a bond issue does address a lot of the needs that a district has, sometimes they feel like they don't have to levy as much in their building fund for the next several years, so they can back that down to help offset some of the bond levy. So if it does get to that point and there's a firm number and a project, we try to put together what's called a net tax impact and help the public understand what that might look like as the entire picture, besides just the bond levy. But for tonight, I'm just showing you the bond levy information.
Yeah, quick question.
Yes.
Quick question. That's based on 75%.
That is.
If that
LD2.
LB2 passed, you only use 50%. So then those figures, 25% off.
So the question is regarding a new bill that passed recently in the Nebraska legislature called LB2. And what LB2 says, to the best of my knowledge at this point, is that bond issues that are approved after January 1st, that's kind of the deadline. The ag land in that district, for the purposes of paying the bond only, not your other school taxes, will be assessed at 50% instead of 75% as it is currently. So we started to model some of that and see what that looks like. And if we get it down the road, we don't even know when the bond issue might be called or not yet to know exactly what would impact us. It's a great question. The one thing that I've realized is starting to do some of that modeling that I want people to understand is as that overall valuation comes down, if ag land goes down to 50%, the bond payment stays the same, so the levy has to go up. So it kind of offsets some of that, and it shifts a little more of the burden of the bond issue on the homeowners versus the ag land. And so we'll certainly look at some models and as we get into this conversation so people can see.
Everybody's a homeowner.
Right.
Everybody's a
Right.
homeowner. I'm just saying, I guess, if you still push it into that 20-year term, and the figure's 25% off, then you're gonna have to raise, it's gonna have to be a lot higher to get it paid in that 20-year term.
The levy will.
Yeah, on that quarter section.
Well, under L2, the cost per quarter actually comes down. Right.
You're wanting X many dollars.
Right. The dollars, the tax request
I'm just saying.
does not change. It just changes how it's displaced or dispersed a little bit across those that only own a home and those that have ag land and a home. Yeah.
I guess I just look at it as those costs are gonna be a lot higher.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual.
Well, I'm just saying across the board, because you're gonna have to come up with that 25% somewhere. I'm just kinda what I read.
Yeah, so he's mentioning that the cost will be higher. I'm not understanding for sure. The bond payment would not change under that. So the overall taxes that need to be collected would not be higher, be exactly the same. It would just be distributed differently.
What Gary's getting at is the homeowner's tax impact.
The homeowner's tax impact would go, the home, just on homes and that kind of property would go up. That's correct. But the overall cost of the project, the payments, is fixed. Yeah, we'll need to dig into that more and have a good understanding of that, I think, and we're starting to look at those models to make sure that we understand those moving parts. Thank you.
Okay, so we've thrown a lot of information at you. And so what we need you to do though, and the information that we're asking you to provide to us is that we would like you to take a look at the box on your sheet. There's that lists all those options that I gave you. And we'd like you to kind of go through on your table and discuss the merits of each of them. Because I think when we start talking about these things, we can look at other perspectives and kind of gain more information, maybe from different people that we're sitting with. That's why we like to mix you up. When we're gonna give you some time and we'll walk around. If you have questions, if there's some people that weren't here and we didn't explain something great, just let us know. We'll come by and help you navigate on the plan. That's not a big deal. Or if there's a question, we might call it out so that we can answer it for everybody. But at the end, when we get done, we want you as a table to be able to give us your top 2 priorities that are in that list, those design priorities, and your bottom 2. Because to us, then we can have a good gauge of where we should start to move. And then, like I said, we'll also give you a sheet. We have the sheets for the ballots so that you as an individual, if you would like to write in something different than you agree with at the table, that's fine too. But we'll give you that chance to have that vote as well. So if you can list those out, we would appreciate it. And then we'll come around and we'd like to have a why too. We're kind of nosy. We want to know everything that you want to tell us. So if you can list the top 2 and the bottom 2 and the why with it, we would appreciate that information. Steve said he's going to give you 10 minutes, so. And then we'll start recording out so that we can kind of have an interaction back and forth.
I'd like to mention that we'd like to get together in about 4 or 5 minutes, so at your table, kind of identify what you think the 2 top priorities are, and maybe the 2 bottom priorities, and report on that in about 4 and 5 minutes.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started on this next part. So we'll go around and give each group the chance to give your top 2 and your bottom 2, and please explain why. And then just a reminder, when it's all done, everybody will get their chance to individually place your priority list there. So top 2, bottom 2, and why. And we will start with this table over here where Mike Jansen is, if you guys are ready.
Yeah.
All right. Woo. We're not very good at following directions because we kind of figured the new elementary school was like already number 1 probably. And so we kind of discussed everything separate after that fact, like it's already set, okay, in our table. And so we had a lot of good discussions, and I think everybody at this table has a different number 1 and a different bottom 1. But I have the microphone, so I can say. I think that as a discussion as a group for our needs, we recognize the need for another gym space and a wrestling room, but that the competition portion of the gym or of this large of a gym space would not be a priority for us. So sharing the space of a wrestling room in that same space as a gymnasium and kind of maybe killing 2 birds with one stone almost, and looking and having it be a practical need, and that was one of our top things. The other top thing in our group was the ag and shop space. And then the things at the bottom, not saying that we didn't want this, but we kind of put the fitness center and the weight room at the bottom. That's really it.
Okay, we discussed it, and the elementary K through 6 was the top priority. Just because sticking money into an old facility is financially responsible. And
We had our second top one was the new and expanded shop and ag CTE classrooms and space. Just because obviously if we do this, it's gonna have to be rebuilt anyway. Plus, I mean, we're an ag community, everybody does shop stuff around here, so it's definitely a need. The bottom two were the 8-lane track at this time and the pre-K daycare. I don't know much about pre-K. We kind of discussed the daycare as being more of a private enterprise and how adding that, you know, I don't know what the responsibilities of the district would be to providing the space for someone to utilize to run that. And then the 8-lane track, it's, I think the big hang up was it's not factored into the price yet, but it's something that can probably wait at this point, but it definitely does.
Okay. Our number one was the elementary school, mainly because it seems like that's the whole reason we're doing this. So that was our first priority. The second priority was the expansion of the shop and ag room, mainly because of the community we're in and the involvement we have in those. The least, we went with the track simply because it's something we don't have now. It's also something that could be added later and not affect any of the cost of the current building or facility of the way it's laid out here, since it's not attached at all. And then the second least would be the pre-K daycare, or pre-K daycare. Primarily because, again, it takes an individual to run that. And if that individual that you're going to get to run that in school could just as well do that at home on their own. So it seemed like that situation would lend more to people doing that in their own home versus working for a school system. Oh, one of the things that got brought up with the current layout is if you look at how we draw in to the facility now, we enter at the highway level. And then it's pretty much downhill to the current front door of the school, or the main entrance of the school. And the way this layout is, it blocks all the natural drainage that goes off to the east. So if we were to build the school the way it's laid out here, there would have to be a substantial storm sewer that sits somewhere in the middle of that parking lot.
Table 9, much like everybody else, new elementary number 1, new ag CTE number 2, track number 9, and a whole mixed ag for number 8. Thank you.
Yeah, us here at table 3, again, like Amber had said, we all have our own ideas, what really should happen, but as a group, we kind of came to the consensus that the new elementary school is the #1 priority, which is why we're all here tonight. Our second priority is kind of a combination between the competition gym and the additional locker space. I think that's a really big issue here, because we like to host different sports things, and we do not have sufficient room for either one of those. So that was our second priority. And the bottom 2 for us, the pre-K daycare, yeah. I have a hard time with that. The gentleman over there had said that should really be left to private enterprise. And right ahead of that, we had a table, thought the wrestling room might have been a bit much, but that was just what we could forward to. Thank you.
All right, table 10 over here. So we kind of went with the table over there. The new elementary school obviously is kind of a given with what's going on. That's why we're here. We actually did make our number one the pre-K daycare room, more towards the daycare area. If you look at our area, we're hurting. We don't have anywhere for our kids to go. A lot of us, we're young moms, young families. We don't have anywhere for our kids to do. And it's harder for, working parents as well. Our number 2 was the new expanded shop and ag room. Look at our community. We are ag. Majority of our high school kids, I know there's multiple areas that they go, but a lot of them are ag related. There's some sort of way that's what they're going to do, and that's who we are. Our bottom 2 were, number 8 was the expansion of the weight room, the fitness area. We kind of looked at, the class sizes of what we had when we were in school and how small the weight room was or how large, depending on how you look at it, and it was sufficient enough then. We feel like it's probably still sufficient with the, less amount of kids that we actually have in our area these days. Then also the track. We don't feel like the track is something we need to do right now. Like the table there had said, it's always something we can add on later. Yeah. Jesse wants to add.
Greg and I were talking, and the daycare part, if Mr. Love or somebody could step in and say, who is paying for this? Is the general taxpayers paying for Greg, let's say, to bring his little ones into school, or is he paying for it out of his own pocket? Who's paying for the teacher or whoever?
And it all would depend on how we set that up. I talked to Mr. Alexander at Bloomfield, and what they do, at least my understanding is, they provide the space, but a private daycare provider is the one in there. So if you're bringing your kids, you're paying for your kids just like you normally would. I'd have to see if they pay the school for that space or if they just use it. I think they just use it, but guarantee so many spots for teacher, kids, and then after that, it's anybody from the public. So that's my understanding of it. And it's however you set it up. Every place I'm sure is different.
All right, over here on table 4, we, a lot like all the rest of you, had kind of splitting, once we got 1 and 2 and 9 and 8 out of there, there's definitely some variance in the opinions on, where all the middle ground ends up at. Our number 1 and 2 were the K through 6 elementary school, and then the pre-K / daycare room. And I think to a certain extent, the daycare room is kind of what's throwing people off here a little bit. I mean, the rooms are set aside for either pre-K or for a flexible or daycare, or I'm sure it could even be constituted into some form of an elementary flex room on it. But on the pre-K side of it, we're one of the very few school districts in Northeast Nebraska that, as a public school, do not provide a preschool program. And underneath the Biden administration, I'm pretty sure that will be federally mandated in the next year or 2 for us to actually provide that for our students on that aspect. And then on the daycare side, again, I don't know the specifics, and I'm sure Mr. Looker and the administration would have to look into it on that side. But with both parents, 90-some% of the households today, both parents working on that aspect of it. We definitely want to drive people to stay local, to be local, to, open businesses and stuff here. But when they have to drive to Yankton, Wausau, Bloomfield, somewhere else for daycare, that kind of takes the draw away from, let's keep everything here on it. I'm sure, just off the top of my head, I can probably think of 20 people that drive their kids over to Yankton for preschool or for daycare, but actually work in Northeast Nebraska, because there's just not enough here anymore.
when I was growing up, at least one of your 5 best friends' mom had an indoor, in-home daycare. That is just not the case anymore now. So just kind of try and keep an open mind on that aspect. On our 9 and 8, we did the performance stage and then the track. The track, we just set it there because, just like everyone else said, it can be added easily in the future and not necessarily affect any of what we want to do on this plan. And then the performance stage, although our performing arts and speech are very important to us here, we feel like we could possibly come up with a different idea of a multi-use stage, either attached to the gym or the second commons there as being more of a flex area for performance arts. And then we kind of had a hodgepodge in the middle on our 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 competition gym. Something that people in the area have been asking for a very long time. Whether it's a competition gym or just a second gym, that's something that can definitely be played with down the road. Additional locker rooms, that just kind of goes hand in hand with the second gym on it. If you're going to build a second gym, you have to have additional locker rooms, not just to keep separate your junior high and your high school kids, but also to be able to have access to district tournaments and competitions. And then we had our ag program was kind of right there in the middle, if not in the top 4, because we are a very ag-centered community on it. And with the way that today's trends are all kind of going away, that those people that were in those service fields are now at retirement age, and there's only a third coming back in to fill them out. So ag and or technical programs will be huge, I think, in the next 10 to 20 years. And then we just kind of went down the list from there. Wrestling room and the expansion of the weightness and fitness room were kind of an interchangeable aspect there. Whereas the weight room, I agree with the last table on it. It would be awesome to have an expansion of it. But 15, 20 years ago when I graduated, we had twice as many kids in the class and we were using the exact same weight room facility. But to the same extent, wrestling is definitely been a sport in the school for a lot of years now and has had no place to call their own, and has kind of gotten bounced around between schools and closets and extra space wherever they can roll mats out. So that would definitely be a big positive for the school. That's all we have.
Here in Table 6, when we said that the new elementary was probably going to be the top priority, since that's why we're here. The daycare, the pre-K to daycare kind of feeds into the elementary, and there is indeed, as another table said, we have someone that said the same thing. It's hard to find good daycare, qualified people, but to have it here and accessible would be great. A close one as well was the expansion of the shop and the ag and CTE classrooms, just because that is the environment that we're in, that is who we are, that's our identity. Bottom 2, track was the bottom, just because it was not included in the price. It is something that could be dealt with later on. The rest of them all had merit, but we picked one, and we picked the expansion of the fitness and the weight room. It's necessary, it's needed, but it's of the rest of them, it's the least.
Table 11, we basically would be repeating what everybody else said about the elementary school. It's the obvious. And we were on board with the shop ag being the next priority. Again, for all the reasons talked about, I'm going to advocate for the pre-K daycare because I think that's a huge need for our community. It's a draw for people to move and stay in Crofton, live in Crofton, and that's what we ultimately want to. That's what we ultimately want here. We want a school and a place where people can live and work, and our kids, learn much about kids moving away, getting good jobs in other places, but we want them to move back too, you know? And so by providing, daycare for young families, that gives them an option to move back and not have to choose between another community like Gayville or Ballin, who are actively pursuing these types of things and getting a lot of people who don't want to live in Yankton, don't want to live in a bigger town. So those are the two, ag and daycare. And then the bottom, we didn't really pick a bottom because they don't have really good merits, and really it's whatever your preference is, whatever your someone's like wrestling, someone's like running, someone's like basketball and all the sports. So I mean, it's a toss up there for us. Thanks.
Okay, Karen was supposed to do this, but I will, I guess. We agree with the K6 was number one. And we kind of preface that with upgrade, whether it be renovation or new, we don't know that yet. Number two was the expansion of shop, ag CTC. And we, at the bottom, or at least wanted the track and the competition gym. I will say our third thing was the expansion of fitness weight room, but we wanted a community access to the weight room, fitness center, and the locker rooms were our number four.
Make sure you remind them all to fill out their own sheets.
So at this time, if you take the sheets at your individual sheets at your table, if you fill that out based off of your own personal preferences, we'll get those record bids, I'll put them together and send those out so that everyone can see that as well. But yeah, take your time, and it's what you individually would like. We have extras up there if someone will not get one. All right. Well, that wraps this meeting up. I want to thank you for your input, architects and gentlemen, all, thank you as well. Great feedback, great conversation as well. As far as, future, we'll let you know when that next meeting is. Keep your eyes open in the paper, on our school website, anywhere there. I would, like you to continue to talk with community members, ask questions, ask these guys questions. They're going to be here for a little while as well. Ask me or anybody else if you have questions. Don't hesitate to let us know. So thank you again for coming. If you'd like a tour, again, let us know. We'll get something set up. All we need is a motion to adjourn.
I sold them. Somebody has to do it. That's right. Mike, second. No, second it.
Bendy,
Behind you.
Bendy, okay. Jansen,
Yes.
Laney,
Yeah.
Marsh,
Yeah.
Poppy, Potts. Motion carried 6-0.
All right, thanks again. So if you have any questions, feel free to stick around and let us know.